Hello YouTube viewers, welcome to my channel Science to Technology. In today's show, Camera Tuesday, we're gonna talk about a legendary camera, Sony A7S Mark III. So let's dive right into it. Well, first, because of the legendary status, I'm just gonna get the con out of the way because again, I tangibly cannot find too many things wrong with it. So first thing, if you have truly ordered it or you want to buy it, please spend time on SD card. There is a serious issue with this camera in terms of SD card compatibility. Reason for that is Sony used to have 100 Mbps. That was like, bro, nobody cares. Now they are pushing as high as 2000 megabits per second. You have to have truly good cards for that. And not to mention, you have to have V90 rating. V90 simply means card can sustain writing inside a camera at 90 Mbps bare minimum. So not every card, that even if it says let's say 300 Mbps, it may not have the oomph behind it to sustain it. So side effect of that would be the moment you put it in camera is like, bro, I can't do this. So be mindful and please do proper testing. Look around for the reviews and all that, or buy a card that has longer return window if it does not work out. So be mindful of that. Now, another aspect, Sony introduced a new format. Technically untrue because the format has now been created by Compact Flash Association. Sony gave them the XQD variant simply because again Sony created a new format, it was not successful. Compact Flash created a new system, it was not successful. So both of them got married and they created a combined system. So this system is NVMe based, aka it's using PCI Express rather than like Compact Flash card used to use SATA interface, and SD card has its own bus architecture. So both of them have issues. So they are like, okay, let's throw it all away, use PCI Express NVMe, benefit super duper hyper high speed. So there is three format for that. Format number one, the tiny one, the type A, that is the railing, it has one PCI lane. The bigger one that is used in Panasonic, Nikon and Canon, those are type B. What does that mean? That means it has two PCI lane. There is a type C, which is a like almost big cassette kind of size. It has four PCI lane. Now you're like, what the hell, that does not make sense. Well, if you're familiar with computer architecture, you know it always goes in double lanes, like 1x slot, 2x slot, 4x slot, 8x slot, 16x slot. It always goes like that. So they are going that. Now, will it be successful? Will this just become another fad? I do not know. But be mindful, I'm old enough where I remember SD card used to come. Then they were like, okay, then there were a mini SDI. Yes, there was a format known as that, mini SD card, and it was used in mobile phones. And then they introduced the new one, micro SD. People hated that. It's like, micro, I have to buy new cards and all that. It will not work. And mini died, but micro survived. So it could happen like this, like that mid one that die off, and for big cameras like FX9, C500 and all that, the big cassette one survives. So it could happen. So I'm not gonna be like master of that. And not to mention, the implementation is mind-bogglingly good. I have to respect it. Like some engineers like, bro, I'm gonna give you everything plus the kitchen sink. Okay, I'm gonna give you dual cards. And the reason why dual card is important here is like, if you pay attention to Canon department, it's like you can record video to one, but you can't record both of them. And in R5 cases, it makes sense. 8K is so big, only big cards can handle that. UHS2 card cannot handle that. In the here, they had to make sure that both card can handle it, so you can do redundant video recording. So be mindful of that. Another aspect, people are not that jazzed about, hey, IBUS. Now IBUS is much better than anything previously done by Sony, so it's a very tangible improvement. But honestly speaking, Canon is like, bro, get out of there, just get out of there. And Canon did something very clever. All of their lenses have image stabilization built into it, IS. Sony used to release a lot of OSS, optical steady shot, which they call their trade name for image stabilization, but they do not release it in their wide angle lenses. Side effect, now people are connecting, it's like, only if I had OSS, it would really be good enough, but it's not. So photo lens people are like, yeah, Sony is good enough, but wide angles do not have OSS. So that's like Tamron lenses flat out don't have OSS. So if you are expecting Tamron is gonna compensate for IBUS, yeah, it can't help you, man. Even Sigma does not release OSS. So that just held back the IBUS, let's just put it that way. Now it will overheat if you try to cook it. So if you put it in a microwave oven, which people have done, if you try to cook it inside a heater oven, it will go hot. And if you put it in outside sun, if the temperature exceeds 30 degrees Celsius, and it will only record for 20 minutes, or it may be even lower than that. A reason for that, you have to be mindful. Everybody's like, lost their mind, Sony overheats before Canon. The reason for that is very simple. Canon is using what we call insulator design, basically the outer shell of Canon Canon is like insulated. That's why it does not feel hot when you touch it. Side effect, that protects you from the outside heat, but that also traps heat inside. That's why when somebody was using R5, I have provided the video down below, you can see that he was like, okay, I'm gonna turn on the camera, I'm gonna frame up the shot, do everything we have to do, then we're gonna start. But the camera literally started to count down. It's like 15 minutes of recording capability, which was lower than 20 minutes. Okay, it started, took 10 minutes. By the time they actually pressed record, it only had 5 minutes left, because the heat generated by normal processor operation, normal photographing and all that, it was being trapped. So slowly it started to cook itself. That is why Canon cameras recovery rate is miserable. It's like, yeah, you shot something, let's say you got your magical 20 minutes, awesome, you're like, okay, I'm gonna cool the camera down and then I'm gonna, you know, take two. SD, that take two will not happen unless 1 hour pass. Like other YouTubers literally have to push this in a fridge to cool it down. Sony on the other hand, it cools down in 3 minutes because it has a heat sink. So if you put fire on the heat sink, yeah, heat will go inside, but heat can also come outside at the same rate. So it's much better. So do not think too much about that. So like 2 YouTubers have successfully got to overheat, and everybody else is like, yeah, it does not overheat unless you want it to overheat. So I'm not that worried about it. And not to mention, because of the heat sink, you can put a fan on it, it will cool it down because it has a heat sink to dump energy, while Canon does not. The only camera that does not overheat reliably, which is a Panasonic SH1, which has a freaking fan in it. So I'm not too worried about it. And not to mention, my use case is either in the evening, night, morning. Rarely, I am Indian, but I do not like to stand outside in the sun for 30 degrees Celsius plus. That will give me a heat stroke or make me black. So that is tangibly issue. You have to be mindful of that. Think about cooling, or you can just have an umbrella. So be mindful of that. So what is this? Well, this camera is a perfect video camera. Flat out, there is no discussion. At this point in time, at this amount of money, there is nothing that even comes close. Flat out. It is a true 4K video camera. True 4K. No compression, no line skipping, no like, you know, oh, if you actually want to use this camera without overheating, you have to do line skipping and then it looks uglier than this. No. True 4K. It can do up to 120 frames per second at 10 bit, which mind you, very few cinema camera can do. 4:2 all eye internally. Let that sink in. Oh, and not to mention, you can do that in normal SD card also. So mind-boggling. And you will see they have great autofocus. Now, problem with Sony's autofocus, which people did not like that much, is like Sony's autofocus is very snappy. It's like boom, autofocus. Now that's great for photographs, but really bad for video, because in video you want it to be smooth. Let's say, like if you have seen the movie Her, it's like very smooth, gentle. You do not even think about the camera is focusing, slowly bringing things into focus, slowly bringing it up. Like there is a dude whose job is follow focus guy, who's like slowly bringing it up. Sony is like, okay, we got it. We trust our autofocus, we do not trust the speed of it. Here's the, you control the sensitivity, you control the acceleration, deceleration. Awesome. No recording limit. Thank you. Like the biggest complaint I get on my channel, in my Hindi channel and my English channel, is I talk too fast. The reason for that is my camera has 30-minute recording limit and I do one take, so I'm always under psychological stress, which I did not even realize. It's like, dude, I have to talk fast, otherwise I'm gonna run out of time recording. And the reason for that was European Union was like a beep, and they were like, if you record more than 30 minutes, we're gonna tax you extra, like 20% tax will go to 25% tax. So I can understand that, but that has been removed for past 2 years. And Sony was the first who is like, A6100, no recording limit. A6600, no recording limit. A6400, no recording limit. A9 Mark II, no recording limit. A7R Mark IV, no recording limit. Tada, no recording limit. Now this is the part that hurt me in case of Canon. It's like, dude, I get it. You can't do 4K. You can't do 4K 60. No problem. Give me 4K 30 frame, even with line skipping, which you know for a fact that it will not overheat. That's what you specifies in your spec sheet. Why the heck I have to worry about that recording limit? That's no longer applies, but they still put it there. So that's truly bad. That's why I'm spacing. It's a proper video camera. And the reason why this thing is important is like there used to be 3 camera market, where you had things like this, toy camera, then you had handycam, proper video camera, then you had cinema camera. Cinema camera survived, this toy became a tool, and the handycam died. So for this reason, this sort of camera is much more important nowadays, because there is no internet at this point in time. It has now flip out screen. I used to say Sony's ego team will not allow that, but I have been proven wrong. Or maybe there was a patent which expired. So who knows that. And it has touchscreen. Now I had recently made a, not recently, almost a year ago, made a playlist of why no to every camera company. Basically each camera company has some good things, some bad things, and my intention with that playlist was like, so you can understand what to buy and what not to buy, what will suit you, what will not suit you. In that I said Sony has a lot of internal fighting. Basically Sony's Alpha division and Sony's Xperia division, they are fighting. What does that mean? That means Sony's Xperia division died off because they were not getting good camera algorithms, and the camera were not becoming good in the UI department, because the best UI artist Sony has, it's in their basically mobile division. This time they are trying to fix that, and benefit you can see in both parties. Like you can see Sony's mobile phone now have best camera, and this has touchscreen now, which hardware was already there, but the software was not there. Hardware is there. Menu system has been redesigned. So I think they are patching up. They are getting the marriage together. So that's awesome. Now color science, this was the pain point for Sony users, which did not make sense to me. It's like Sony has been used for Star Wars, like it laid the foundation of what we see in the movies, as in like prequel series, whether you like it or not. Like that was very good movie technically speaking, and not to mention they have been used by many news industries, that has been used by many TV shorts and all that jazz, TV shows and all that jazz, because it is a Netflix approved system. Like FX9, FX7, those are like well-known cameras. So why the heck a company that can do something that amazing has such an issue? Turns out the real reason for that is Sony was because they are semiconductor manufacturing, they do not trust their own current basic coloring ability. So Fuji takes the sensor data and they colors it and then gives you the JPEG. Awesome, because they had experience with film camera. Canon, because they have been in this industry long enough, they can color it well. Nikon can color it the best. Like most people in double blind test will choose Nikon system over Canon. That's why Canon is in the market for so long. But Canon was better than it, because Canon coloring algorithms were better. So what did Sony do? Sony tried to do what we call realistic rendition. It's like, this is the color you see, this is the color you get. Problem with that is real world has almost infinite color, and outcome of that was 8-bit pipeline they were using in their previous camera was not fat enough. Basically it had in one color, let's say you take the R channel, red channel, you stretch it out, you had only 255 levels of it. Not enough, right? Now you take in today's system 10-bit, 1024 layers of it. So that's a lot of smooth radiation. Benefit, now it has enough color richness, that realistic footage, now it actually translates that. And at this point in time, if somebody says I'm not happy with Sony's color, either they do not know the color gradation or they simply are lazy. Like I can understand if you are doing a run and gun, you're like happy with the Fuji color science, awesome, enjoy. You're like, hey, I'm happy with the Canon one, enjoy. But you cannot tangibly say that like this is bad now. At this point it's like today it requires more work from me. That would be a true thing to say. But that's no longer an issue. That no longer is a pain point. They fixed that 8-bit limitation. Awesome. It has the best dynamic range. Now, why does cinema camera look like cinema camera? They use 8 megapixel. Yes, 4K is needed for 8 megapixel. Or vice versa, and that's why people are like, why do you think RE is so popular? Because they never run around for basically megapixel. They are not like red, let's go 8 megapixel, let's get 16. No, they're like, give you the butter you actually see, the highlight roll off, the low light sensitivity. How can they do that? They are not going for megapixel, they are going for 8 and properly giving you highlight roll off. And not to mention, that was the pain point for every this tiny camera. Even if the sensor could capture the detail, the 8-bit was the limitation. They solved that, and because it has 12 megapixel, which mind you, it's the ratio is a bit different, that's why it's technically 12. It has big enough photo sites that it does not have that cook off effect. Basically photo site saturated by light start to spill into another, computer cannot make sense out of it. You get that white burn off effect. That's like, that's a cheap camera, that's a cheap camera, that's a cheap effect, which I'm genuinely surprised how many people can easily tell this is a red, RE camera, this is a red camera, because of that reason, that highlight roll off, that extra butter. This camera can tangibly come close to that. Now again, not as good as that, do not make that mistake, but horrifyingly close. It's like, whoa, $50,000 camera, less than 5,000. It's like, whoa, almost touching it because of that megapixel thing. So that's awesome. Like flat out, there is no mirrorless that can compete against it in terms of dynamic range. It has 15 stops of dynamic range on paper, and real world 13, which mind you, only some Canon camera Canons are always bad for that. So only some Canon camera can do, not to mention those who are all C series cameras, basically cinema cameras. Gerald amazing videos like, bro, this has like on a different level. What about ISO? That's the whole benefit of it. It has dual ISO. So one ISO is fine-tuned for highlight roll-off. So basically if you're doing daytime shooting, enjoy that ISO setting, basically below 6400, go above 16,000, you enter in night mode, and at that point it's a night vision camera. So you don't think about like, and another aspect is, yes, there have been many cameras that can quote unquote see in the dark. Most of them have horrible color. This at those ISO, it's tangibly good. Like you can use the footage flat out, like right out of the camera. You don't have to denoise, like fry your CPU trying to denoise it. You can use it. That's the amazing aspect of it. Low rolling shutter has been reduced to a point where it's like if you do side by side testing in Jared, basically in testing by some dude is like little bit worse than R5. In testing by Frono's photo is like better than this. But basically at this point in time, that's not an issue. It won't be like, oh, I have to throw away that footage because like rolling shutter. That's not happening. And it has multiple format options. Basically they learned from Panasonic. Panasonic used to give a lot of options. Early days it did not make sense. I was like, dude, just give the biggest option. Problem is, let's say I'm doing a a short movie. I want to best quality. I'm gonna go all in. Basically, I'm gonna use HXAVC S4K. The reason for that, that's 256 in terms of encoding. All I. Awesome. That's like a lot of color, a lot of easy editing and all that. But again, if I have to do YouTube, I'm gonna be like, bro, give me compressed system, because I'm not gonna have too much editing, color correction and all that. Okay, so that is awesome. Like you can choose even in resolution, all the settings. You can choose whatever you want. You want 422, you get it. You want 420, you get it. You want 10-bit, you get it. You want 8-bit, you get it. That's amazing. That's like somebody sat down and is like, maybe a camera that can cater to more people is more easy, like more easy to sell. They did that. Amazing. So it's surprisingly, like, it's perfect. Now I think the Japanese Ego part left and Canon Triple Hammer came in, because this camera can only do 10 frames per second, and they are saying no, because it does not have stacked sensor, that's why I can't do. No, that does not apply. That because this inherently has better rolling shutter, it inherently can do 240 frames per second. At electronic shutter, it should easily able to do around 40 or 60 frames per second, because 12 megapixel and sensor can easily keep up. So I'm like pretty sure the reason why they are doing this, so they preserve their R9 lineup. Because you have to understand that you need megapixel for bird photography. Was bird going 3-dimensional? You do not know where it's gonna be. You need the megapixel to crop into that. But for sports, you do not. The reason for that is you have 3 things to control. You have aperture, which you can't control. Telephoto lens are not very bright. Shutter speed, you can't control that because it's a sports thing. You have to be fast. The only thing you can control, ISO, the greatest ISO camera right now available in the market. So flat out, this would have been the great camera, but they crippled it. It's like, they could have really made it perfect. Now, many people are like, dude, 12 megapixel, I'm not touching it. Fine. It's the same reason I said many people would be happy with R6. Same applies here. However, be mindful. If you are an individual who only deals with online stuff, let's say you are a marketer or any kind of person who deals with Instagram, Facebook or WhatsApp or something like that, this camera is more than enough. And not to mention, this camera will give you something that no other camera can. So be mindful of, don't just reject it like, no, 12 megapixel, I'm not touching it. No, don't be like that. Now, it is more than good enough if you only do A3 size prints. Basically, if you are in a place where you are doing wedding photographies and all that, and the prints never exceeds A3 size, more than good enough. And not to mention, if you want to do wedding photography, this allows you to do stealth photography. What does that mean? That means, again, do with consent. Again, like if people hire you, only do that. You can have, let's say, f2.8 70 to 200 millimeter lens. You can be a bit far. And that has OSS, so it will allow you to have even more shutter speed. And you can photograph everybody with proper colors. Be mindful. Other cameras can also do that, but they will mess up the color. This will not mess up. You can properly photograph people without being noticed. Because normally, what people do, flash, bam, 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 even bigger flash, boom. So like, you don't have to do that. You can easily blend it out. For the people who seek candid photography, where like, the person should not notice me that I am taking a photograph. Awesome. So this has best night vision camera. Be mindful, I'm very clear about this. It's not, your eye cannot see that, but this camera can see that. So it's on a different level. And people had issue like, Sony has a ugly OVF. Now, Sony did not have ugly one. It's just that competition cat up, and they're like, okay, competition reached to 6 million dots, 9 million, bro. OLED technology, bro. 120 frames per second, bro. So at this point, like, that's the only crippling part, that like 10 frames. No, bro, you can easily done like 60. Or they could have done 41 simply so they can piss off a Fuji film system, because Fuji can do 40, but it never really does. This can easily really do that. So that's a little bit. Now, one thing you have to understand, the reason why I said the cons flat out of the gate is you have to understand, this is a professional tool. Sony sat down and made a proper specified tool. It's not like I'm gonna do all things. It's like I'm gonna do one thing and I'm gonna be awesome at it. That's why I'm not saying do this for product photography. This is useless for that. Do that for still photography. Do that for night photography. It's awesome for that, but not for everything. Not for bird photography. I'm not even gonna touch that for bird photography. So it's a specific tool. It's like it's made to do one thing and it does it well. Now, one thing you have to understand, which I see in many comments, is like, you have to understand there are certain things you can add to a camera, but you cannot add certain things else. For example, let's say you bought Panasonic system. awesome IBIS. You're like, yeah. But seriously, let's say you are doing short film, you needed like manual focus, proper control, awesome. But let's say you want to do like, normal run and gun. Here's the deal, you can't add autofocus to it, but you can add image stabilization to this puppy. Use a gimbal. Or back in my days, people used to have shoulder rigs, which can be made out of PVC pipe, super cheap, and you can have much more smoother system. You can do that. You can add stabilization. That's why Red camera, RE camera, FX series cameras, they don't have image stabilization properly for this reason. Like, you're supposed to add your own equipment. You can add that. Let's say you figured out a cooling system for Canon system, but again, it will still have that 30-minute recording limit. So be mindful what you can add, what you cannot. This has 16-bit raw output, so you will not be like, oh, I want 12 megapixel, 12-bit output or 16-bit. This is like, bro, I got you. And while doing output, it will do redundant recording, which even a Red camera cannot do. So awesome. Redundant video recording, which for some reason R6 does not have, which does not make sense. It uses same system. USB power delivery, which I specified. Canon cameras are like notorious for that. It's like they technically use USB-C, but they do not follow the same power standards. So side effect of that, most power banks cannot charge it. This puppy is like, I got this, bro, I got this. And this, I'm not sure, I hope that's not an issue, is that R5 cannot be used as a card reader. This can be used, and this people have tested it upwards of 500. Basically, at this point, you don't have to buy card reader for this. Like, no, you don't have to buy card reader, which is awesome. You don't even have to buy a battery charger, just plug it in. Awesome. It can do 4-channel audio recording using the MI shoe. Like, who needs 4? Let's say you are doing interview of 4 people round table. Each of them can get a dedicated track. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna have Zoom and this recorder and that recorder. This allows you to do that directly in one video file. That's priceless. For many people, that's like, dude, sign me up. I'm there, I'm done, I'm already sold. This can be cooled with a fan because it has heat sink. The fan actually does something. It's not like fighting against an insulator. You can see that. That's why I'm saying watch that R5 videos. Like, ice packs could not cool it down fast enough with a leaf blower. This can be cooled down very easily. And it's everybody who's comparing this, they're like, dude, it has dynamic range that actually looks like a cinema camera. It's like that 10-bit, awesome. That huge photo size, super awesome. That everybody is comparing this to a cinema camera at this point in time. That's awesome. Like, you can add image stabilization, better image stabilization if you want that. Heck, you can have the light cam. Like, people are getting paid to use those kind of equipment. So you can add certain things, but you cannot add other things. So Sony had made a perfect camera. At this point in time, I'm pretty sure their engineers were like, dude, we can redesign the IBIS, but it will increase the cost from, let's say their target price was, let's say 4,500. They're like, dude, that will go up much higher than that. So there is a cost also, because I think they put a lot of money into the IBIS, a lot of money into the basically redesign the processor. I think they ran out of money. So I'm not that upset about it, because again, learn what you can add to the camera, what you cannot add to a camera. So this was my presentation on Sony A7S Mark III. I hope you liked it, learned from it. In that case, please click the like button, share it amongst your friends. That will help me a lot. If you didn't like it, didn't enjoy, I urge you to press dislike, press it twice to show me extra disappointment. Please leave a comment because I try to reply to all of them. Subscribe, press the bell icon if you're free, and as always, thanks for watching.